Annapurna Upanishad presented by Swayam Prakash Sharma. We begin the Upanishad with an invocation. O God Almighty, with our ears may we hear what is good, with our eyes may we see what is good. O you who are worthy of worship, may we, with healthy bodies and steady limbs, enjoy the full term of life allotted to us by you, always singing your praises. May the glorious Indra bless us. May the all knowing Sun bless us. May Garud the thunderbolt bless us. May Brihaspati grant us well being. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. The Annapurna Upanishad belongs to the Atharved. It is one of the minor Upanishads in the Muktika list of 108 Upanishads to be studied for salvation. This Upanishad figures at serial number 70 in that list. The Upanishad is about Jivan Mukti or liberation while in the body and is in the form of a dialogue between two great sages, the king of yogis Nigad and the renowned knower of Brahma, the sage Ribhu. The Upanishad consists of 5 chapters. For convenience, it is presented in 7 parts. Source material for this upload has been taken from the English translation of the Upanishad by Dr. A.G. Krishna Warrior, as published by the Theosophical Publishing House, Chennai. The Upanishad, Chapter 1. Once Nigad, who was considered as king among the yogis, went to the renowned knower of Brahm, the sage Ribhu. As a sign of respect, he prostrated himself on the ground before the great sage. He then arose and with great respect said, Revered sir, tell me the truth about the self. Tell me the truth about the Atma. O great Brahman, tell me by what kind of worship have you attained this state? Please teach me that grand science, the knowledge of which results in sovereignty over the empire of emancipation, in sovereignty over the empire of salvation. The sage Ribhu replied, My dear Nigad, you have done well to ask such a question. Now listen carefully to the eternal science as I tell it to you. It is knowledge of this alone that will give you a liberated life. The goddess Annapurna, who is eternal bliss, who is independent, who is renowned, who is with flowing tresses, who is the ruler of the world, that Mahalakshmi, who is at once desire, fulfillment, and humanity, the goddess supporting the syllable am is lodged in Om that envelops the root of all phenomena, which is Brahm. I worship the goddess Annapurna using the celebrated and quintessential mantra cultivated by hosts of lady ascetics, by hosts of lady sannyasis. The mantra is Am, Hreem, So, Shreem, Kleem, Om Namo Bhagavate, Annapurna, Mam Abhilashatam, Amam Dehi Swaha, which means, Salutation, O Goddess Annapurna, condescend to grant and guarantee to me the food I desire. This is how I was instructed by my father. Ever since, I have established myself in this discipline, at the same time performing all the activities of my station in life. I have given myself up completely to the daily practice of chanting this mantra. When many days had passed in thus chanting the mantra, the goddess Annapurna, wide eyed, her lotus face beaming with a smile, appeared before me. Seeing her, I prostrated myself on the ground in respect. Then I got up and stood before her with folded hands. The goddess said, My child, you have done well. Ask a boon from me and do so without any delay. O Nigad, O best of sages, thus bidden by the wide-eyed goddess, I spoke. O daughter of the mountain, O great goddess, let the truth of the self, let the truth of the Atma dawn in my mind. The goddess said, so be it, and vanished from my sight. Then, through the perception of the world's variety, the realization of the reality of the truth arose within me. I realized that delusion appears to be fivefold, which I will presently explain. Because of the first delusion, Jeev, or the individual being, and God appear to have different forms. Because of the second delusion, the attribute of agency dwelling in the self or the Atma appears to be real. The third delusion consists in believing that the Jeev, or the individual being associated with the three bodies, has attachment. The fourth delusion consists in considering the world cause, God, to be unstable, to be subject to change. The fifth delusion ascribes reality to the world as distinguished from its cause. These then are the five delusions. At the same time, also, there occurs in the mind flashes when these fivefold delusions cease, when these fivefold delusions vanish. From that moment, spontaneously, my mind was assimilated to Brahm. O Nigad, in the same way, may you also obtain knowledge of reality. Then Nigad, with humility and respect, spoke to Ribhu. Revered Sir, I have absolute faith in you. Please impart to me the peerless science of Brahm. Ribhu was gratified and said, so be it. O sinless one, I shall impart to you the knowledge of reality. Be a mighty agent, be an ardent enjoyer, and be a great renouncer. In this way, having investigated your own real nature, be happy. I am Brahm. I am ever manifest. I am pure. I am first. I am endless. There is no room for the slightest dallying with anything else. There is no room whatsoever for thinking about anything else. Therefore, think in this way. Become blemishless, and, having purified and quietened all movements of the mind, achieve the permanent peace of Nirvana. Know that none of the things that we see here are actually here. They are just like a city seen in the sky, and like water seen in a mirage in the desert. They are all illusions. They do not exist in reality. On the other hand, what is not seen anywhere at all, what is not given as an object, what is beyond the range of the sixth sense, what is beyond the range of the mind, O sage, assimilate yourself to that Brahm. Grasp this thought firmly. I am that Brahm, which is the indestructible, which is infinite, which is the spirit, which is the self or the Atma of everything, which is integral, which is full, which is abundant, and which is partless. Due to the absolute contemplation of nothingness, when we totally empty our mind, when the mind dwindles, this results in the state of being in general, or the state known as Samanya Satta, the state whose essence is unqualified consciousness. Surely, devoid of all objective tinge, when chit or consciousness subsides, then there immediately follows the exceedingly transparent being in general, the state of Samanya Satta that resembles non being. For the liberated self or the Atma, both the embodied and the disembodied, surely there occurs this ultimate perception known as the state beyond the fourth state of Turiya. O sinless one, this occurs in the case of the knower, both when he has risen from samadhi or concentration and when he is established in it, since it is born of awareness. This does not happen at all for the ignorant one. All waverings and vacillations between the states of reasoning, etc., having long since vanished, his face steeped in the lovely light of Brahmic bliss, the sage attains the blessed state through right knowledge alone. The calm repose, the inner cool of the person who perceives this multitude of gunas as non self, as non atma, is said to be samadhi or concentration. The steady mind is empty of all latent impulses, and this is the state of contemplation of samadhi. The same also is aloneness. This is nothing but perpetual rest. This is nothing but perpetual inactivity. The mind, with reduced or declining latent impulses, is said to be bound for the highest state. Next, the mind without such impulses attains the status of non doer. On the other hand, the mind which has the imagination of being the doer, such a mind is filled with latent impulses. This is the cause of all sufferings. Therefore, reduce and weaken the latent impulses. Due to its constant introverted state, when the imagination of unity of all objects is mentally discarded, then all things are resolved into empty space, into nothingness. Crowds in a market, though active, are as good as non existent for the observer when he is not related to them. In the same way, a village is like a forest to the knower. Since the knower is inwardly withdrawn, whether he is asleep or awake, walking or reading, he sees a city, a countryside, or a village as if it were nothing but a forest. He sees all this with total disinterestedness. Once the inner cool is won, the world is cool. However, to those who are scorched by the inner thirst, the world is on fire. For all beings who are not liberated, what is within is projected externally. But the lover of the inner self, but the lover of the inner Atma, even though he operates through the organs of actions, still he is unaffected by joy and sorrow. He is unaffected by joy and sorrow. Such a one is said to be concentrated. The person who, as a matter of routine and not through fear, sees all beings as his or her own self or Atma, and who sees others' possessions as lumps of earth, he alone sees right. Even if death were to come to such a one immediately, or at the end of countless cycles, he remains as unblemished as the gold which has fallen into the dirt. Consider in your mind these questions. Who am I? How is all this brought about? How do birth and death happen? When you consider these questions, when you seriously think about them, then you will earn the great benefit of investigation. your mind will shed its roving form and quietly win repose. Once, through your investigation, you comprehend and understand your own true nature. O Brahmin, your mind, cured of its feverishness, no longer sinks in empirical activities, just as an elephant does not sink in the hollow made by the hoof of a cow. But a petty mind, O Brahmin, does indeed get mired and sinks in petty affairs, just as a battered mosquito sinks in the water collected in the hollow made by the hoof of a cow. O best of ascetics, O best of sannyasis, to the extent all objects are readily renounced, the Supreme Self, the Param Atma, the transcendent light alone remains. Remember, as long as the objects are not renounced, the world or the Atma cannot be known. And what remains, what is left after renunciation of the entire objective manifold, of the renunciation of all manifold objects, that is said to be the Self. That is said to be the Atma. Therefore, in order to realize the Self, in order to realize the Atma, renounce everything. Then, having cast off all objects, assimilate yourself to that which remains. Whatever object is seen in the world around us is but the vibration of consciousness. It is not permanent. It is nothing permanent. O Brahmin, by the term samadhi or concentration, the wise denote transcendent understanding that is concentrated, that is eternally appeased, and that is cognizant of things as they are. The term concentration or samadhi denotes the stable, the mountain-like status of the self or the Atma, that is unagitated, that is unegoistic, and that is unrelated to dualities, that has no dualities. O Brahmin, it denotes the perfected flow of the mind that is sure, that is choiceless, that has no choices, and that is goalless, which has no goal. The best of the knowers of the Vedas, the great ones, they win that fourth state and stable perception that is fashioned solely through a part of the light of the spirit, through a part of the light of the Atma. It is lodged in the heart of all things, and it is not altogether unlike dreamless slumber, when both the mind and the ego subside. After liquidating the mind with the mind, that state, which is that supremely bliss body, is automatically one. From there follows the obliteration of all cravings for objects, after which dawns the auspicious and superbly splendid light. And then, in the case of the very best, due to the sway of even mindedness, there takes place the indescribable transformation into the self-substance. The total and the infinite reality of the self or the Atma dwelling in the fast evolving mind that has been quietened externally is indeed directly experienced as the God of gods and as the self or the Atma of all entities moving and stationary. The unattached, steady, and controlled mind is not in evidence, is not seen in those who are devoted to worldly pursuits, and temporal possessions. The mind that is attached, even though it is subjected to long drawn austerities, is, as it were, altogether bound. On the other hand, the man who is free from inner clingings, whose mind dwells on the blissful Brahm, such a one may or may not may not act externally. He can neither be an agent nor an experiencer. Yes, he can neither be an agent nor an experiencer. This concludes the first part of Annapurna Upanishad. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om.